Hello, everyone. I am that Weems guy here for First Person Safety. This will be the first of a two-part interview with Karl Rehn of KR Training out of Texas. Karl has a very unique background that will become readily apparent to you as we begin with both of these segments. But first, let Karl have a moment to introduce himself. Karl?
Oh my. Well, the quick answer is I've been doing firearms training and running my own training business for 30 years. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary back in May. And I've done some other things, but just to keep the introduction brief, I've got about 3,000 hours of training from about 80 different trainers, and USPSA Grandmaster, and chief lawnmower and toilet scrubber at the A-Zone range, which is my training facility where I teach classes and I host classes and occasionally get to practice.
Now, you're kind of modest with that Grandmaster. That's multiple divisions in Grandmaster.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna throw some more modesty on there. USPSA recently changed the standards for Grandmaster, and they raised the standards by 5 to 10%. And so I'm glad that I promoted when I did, because it's become harder in the last couple of years to move up. And boy, they've made the hill high to climb.
Well, good. That's probably a good thing, though.
It is, except now that I'm stuck in Grandmaster class against people that actually are making Grandmaster under the new standards. So they're incredibly good. So, right now I would say my skill is probably honestly master level and not new GM level. It's like old Coke and new Coke, grandfathered in under the old standards.
All right, Karl, you also had a very distinguished career in instructional, like from the Texas A&M side of research oriented, right?
Yeah, I did 20 plus years doing scientific research, and that sort of transitioned over when my wife got a faculty job with Texas A&M. I ended up working for TEACS, the Texas Engineering Extension Service, and I managed a team of 9 full-time and 22 part-time instructors doing training for DHS. So I spent about 9 years writing curriculum, evaluating instructors, training instructors, going to classes on learning to be better at all of those things. So I got roughly the equivalent of another master's degree in education on the classes that they sent me to. And I did that work doing nothing but education, training, and curriculum full-time for A&M, which was funded by DHS, a national program on critical infrastructure development. So yeah, I did a lot of that. And the other thing is, just along the way, I've built my own training team at KR Training. We've got about a dozen instructors now that are part-timers that assist me with classes. And that has also been a project to figure out, how do we develop those people, and what standards do I train them to, and what do I expect from them, and what do they need to know, and how do they work best on class day.
All right, tell everyone where KR Training is located.
Quick answer is we are 1 hour from Austin, 1 hour from College Station, 2 hours from Houston, San Antonio, and Waco. And so we're convenient to none, but central to all in the middle of Texas.
It's a very nice facility. I've had the pleasure of being there on a number of occasions. And so if you're looking for good training, and Austin, he's on the same side of Austin that the airport's on, so you can fly in, you can run it, you can stop and get some good barbecue on the way out to KR Training and get some good training from either Karl or some of the people that he's got there in town.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. I have a background for those of you that are unaware. I have a master's degree in public administration from the University of Georgia. A number of my elective classes were in what we call organizational development. And that is, a lot of it has to do with managing a workforce and trying to motivate and get the most productivity you can out of employees. And I'm familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs from that standpoint of how it relates to a workforce. I believe it was the 2017 tactical conference Karl presented Beyond the 1%. And it was a presentation on how to grow a firearms business. And I walked in, and I'm sitting down in the tent there. And early on in the presentation, up pops this triangle that I am very familiar with. And it is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And as soon as I saw it pop up on the screen, I'm like, I know exactly where this is going. And it makes so much sense. But I had never thought of the hierarchy of needs in that context. So as Karl is explaining the hierarchy of needs and the beyond the 1%, I will occasionally be throwing the triangle up on the screen so that viewers can see it and we'll have something to relate to. And so at this point, Karl, explain to them beyond the 1%.
Well, how this lecture came about was something that we've done that's very different than most schools do, or it was different when we started doing it. Honestly, there's quite a few schools now that are copying our approach, and I'm very honored that they've seen the value in it. What I figured out very simply, it was one of my assistant instructors actually that pointed out to me. He said, you know, there's a lot more people with 4 hours and $100 that are willing to come to training than there are with 16 hours and $500 or $400 that'll come out for a weekend. And it doesn't really matter who it is. It's not the individual that's going to change whether they're motivated to come out or not. It's that they don't have the money and the time. Their level of motivation to train, they have it, but they don't have it to the level that they can give up an entire weekend. And that was really an eye-opening moment, I think, for us in our business, that I realized, you know, instead of trying to offer 16-hour classes or 8-hour classes, to completely restructure what we were doing in the scope of 4-hour blocks, generally priced about $100 to $125 a piece, that used fewer rounds and were in bite sizes. But by the same token, we set up a structure of classes where if you take enough of the classes, you've taken the equivalent of the same kind of training you would get from, say, the classic Gunsight 250 or a Thunder Ranch Defensive One, or any of the programs that have a 32 to 40 hour, week-long handgun course. And so we created a way for people that had kids and jobs and other interests and a life and a budget to still get that kind of training, but they did it at the local level. And where that came from, really, we started looking at the numbers, was to realize that at the time we looked at it, there was about 1 million carry permit holders in Texas. And if you added up all the numbers of people with all the training schools that I knew of at the time and their estimated student volumes, and or some cases they gave me their student volumes, right? But then you looked at how many USPSA members, how many IDPA members, all that sort of thing. You look at participation beyond the state minimum. I discovered that sadly, it was about 1% or slightly less of those 1 million permit holders in a given year did anything beyond the state minimum. And so, I realized, look, if I can just move the needle 1 or 2% to get some of those people to come to my 4-hour classes, that became a really viable business model for keeping classes full and keeping the pipeline going, right? You have to offer the sequence. So once they get on the merry-go-round, they don't get off. They stay on until they ride it all the way. Well, more like a roller coaster, perhaps, because they're going to ride it all the way to the end once they get on. That by structuring it so there was a challenge coin and a master certificate at the end, then it was, okay, I've started this program. Well, I only need 2 or 3 more classes to finish up, or gee, this looks interesting. I'll go do this and do this. Oh, look, now I'm only 1 or 2 classes from being finished. So we got a lot of repeat business and people returning for higher level classes that we wouldn't get just by offering a random selection of short courses when we gave it a structure and said, here's a sequence and you have to do all these things and meet all these standards. It's really helped. We've, it's become a quite an attractive process. We get a lot of people to come out. And then when the ammo drought hit, being able to offer people, hey, you got 100 rounds, come out for class, right? We never got down to 50 round classes, but we cut a lot of things that had been 150 or 200 round classes down to 100 rounds, and we're able to keep the program going. And so again, we've seen people cancel out of classes that were 1,000 round 2-day classes, but our 4-hour classes continue to sell.
Yeah, I saw that locally here. I ran a number of 50 round 3-hour workshops throughout the ammo drought, and that's what kept my business going locally. It's because people could find 50 rounds to come to a class.
Right. We'd let them shoot at 22. We didn't care what, bring any gun you can find, didn't matter. Because you bring the gun that you carry, and if nothing else, you'll dry fire that and then switch to your 22 for the live fire drills. But come on out and get some work. We increased the number of force on force classes that we were doing, more red gun work, lecture, medical, pepper spray. We got a lot of different things in our program. So we also increased the frequency of those things. So we could say, because some of the classes in our program are force on force, some of them are red gun tactical courses. So we offered a lot of those. And so, yeah, if you only got 100 rounds, come out for this thing in the morning, stick around for the other one in the afternoon, you knock out 2 more classes in the program.
All right. Now I'm going to throw the hierarchy of needs up here on the screen real quick. All right, and at the bottom of the triangle there, we have the psychological and safety, excuse me, physiological and safety needs, and Maslow paired these together both as, say, basic needs. Now, when I look at the triangle, and I know from your presentation, that's basically the state level license to carry course that is required of a number of states. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I'm going to come off as very cynical in this next answer, but in terms of people checking the box psychologically, yes, right? They go to class, they get their carry permit, and then often, many of them don't actually carry. Some of them don't even have a loaded gun accessible in their own home, or they poorly store a loaded gun in their vehicle where it can be stolen. But in their mind, that checks the box for safety and security that, oh, I've got the gun in my car. I don't have it with me right now, but I've got it in the car. And if I need it, I can go get it, or they think they can go get it. So there's a lot of people that, the 99%, yeah, that's where they're at. I can check the box now. I took one class, I shot 50 rounds, I met a state standard solo, I could pass it blindfolded, but that means I'm good to go and I don't ever need to do anything else.
Right. Those are the people that look at that one class as that's all they'll ever need.
Yeah, and many of them, like we just passed constitutional carry, many of them are like, well, I didn't really need that class
Right.
at all, but the state made me take it, so I took it, and the many of the licensed carry instructors in Texas are panicked because if the only program they ever offered people was the state mandated class, many of them are looking at precipitous drops in business as the average person. I think the average permit holder now, what would have been a gun carrier, they're just like, well, I don't need that class. They may still want other classes, but they're not. I think the demand for the state class really is going to plummet considerably now that it's not required just to carry in the state or to have a gun inside your vehicle.
Right. So the people that are taking that class, they're only there because basically the state told them they had to be there if they wanted to
Yeah.
carry. Or yeah, I get some business where a parent buys their adult child who's just moved out of the house, they buy them a firearm and say, but I'll let you have this firearm if you take a basic safety class.
Yes.
And so that student is there basically for the same reason. They're only there because somebody's making them to be there. They're not there because they chose necessarily to become a trained firearms person.
Right. But some of that next level of people do come back because once
Right.
they've done the state carry permit class, they realize enough to know that they don't know what they need to know. And so they do come back. The safety and security needs do drive, in many cases, their desire to come back and take additional classes because they want the confidence to know that they can carry concealed in public. There are people that actually do get the carry permit with full intention of carrying in public all the time. And they get through the state course and they go, well, that doesn't seem like everything I need to know. And we say, nope, it's not. Here's the next class in the sequence. And then we teach you how to use a holster and draw from concealment and shoot at a realistic pace and with more practical accuracy and all that. And they go, well, yeah, that's what I thought the state class was going to be. I'm like, yeah, sorry about that. The state class is what it is, but it opens the door to the next thing. So, come on down for the next 4-hour, $100 class. And often we'll run the state class and that entry level class back to back on the same day, which gets a lot of people to stick around.
Yeah, years ago, I attended a basic 40-hour medical class that was part of a certification process here in Georgia. And some of it was good, some of it was kind of weak and a nod. We know you're just here to get a certification. And I graduated that class on Friday. And on Tuesday, on my way home from work of the following week, a medical call of someone in cardiac arrest went out. And I was a half a mile from the scene and was the first person on the scene of an actual honest to goodness cardiac arrest. And on Wednesday morning, I went to the fire chief's office and like, okay, I need a real class. So
Right.
yeah, I saw the need that, yeah, I checked the box and got my permit. Now I need to actually know how to do this, and enrolled in an 80-hour class that had 10 follow-on practicals riding in the ambulance after that.
Oh, that's good.
Um,
That's good. Yeah. Say, chief, well, that's not the kind of arrest I'm used to dealing with. So,
right. I couldn't just put handcuffs on that.
that's
Uh,
right.
And actually, it was one of the few cardiac saves I've ever seen. No, I didn't save her. She lived because she decided she was going to live.
Hey, that's
But
good. That's
you
good.
know, but it's you know, I was there meeting a standard, and all of a sudden I realized I had met the standard, and the skills and training that I had were not enough, and I
Yeah.
needed to seek something else. Um, so let's move on to the next level is the psychological needs, and that's those people that come back beyond that minimum level of required training, or if you're in Texas now and it's not a requirement, or Tennessee, I know just went to a constitutional carry. I believe South Carolina either did that or is in the process of doing that. And so all of these state mandated students aren't going to be there for businesses anymore unless people want a permit to carry out of state. Um, Now you're going to have a product that attracts the people who are coming because of the other needs. So what are the psychological needs, and how did you relate that to firearms training?
Well, years ago when I got started in shooting, I'll be totally honest. I was a gamer. I was a USPSA shooter. I wasn't that interested in carrying. It wasn't personal defense was not my primary entry point into the world of shooting. It was I like shooting guns and this shooting guns and running around going fast. This looks like fun, right? And once I started shooting competition, I made friends. And so I enjoyed going to the range and shooting guns. And I enjoyed hanging out with people that like to go fast and shoot guns. And I enjoyed competing against other people, right? And so doing well on match day or simply just shooting well became a pleasure seeking thing of its own. And you see that with people that come back from multiple classes. And that's one reason why we had success with the 40-hour coin program was there's some personality types that will look at that and go, well, yeah, regular people have carry permits, but I'm going to do this other thing, which is way better. And there's a certain degree, it gives them confidence, which is safety and security, but it also gives them the sense of accomplishment, the satisfaction to say, look, I've gone to this higher level. I can now do this, right? I can shoot IDPA expert, or I can shoot USPSA B class, or I can pass the FBI agent qual course, whatever. Having those milestones, there's a lot of people in the training community, people that are regular consumers of training. They're all about more and more challenging standards and gee, can I get this, can I get to this level, can I get to the next level? I totally get that. I am one of those people. But there's also people that simply like to go to the range with their friends and shoot guns, and it's more fun for them to go to the range and take a class where we're going through a shoot house, or they're shooting steel targets, or we're doing a man on man shoot off with falling steel, or things like that, that they can't go down to the indoor range, like stand in one spot, shoot a target. Oh, you're shooting too fast. You can't draw from a holster. That's not fun, right? So we try to make sure that part of the marketing of the classes is, hey, this is fun. Come out and do this because you're going to enjoy it. Because it's come with your friends. Sometimes when things get slow, we'll do a friend bring a friend deal, right? 2 registrations for a discount price. So it's like, you know, 75% cost for each one. So it's either you can pay full price, or if you bring a friend, you both get in for 75%, things like that. And we get regular students that, they see each other frequently. They come to classes and they make friends and they make shooting buddies from coming to the classes, right? They see people over and over again, and that becomes a community in and of itself.
Uh-huh.
And so, there's all of those things that happen that become, shooting becomes a hobby, or it becomes more of a higher goal. We also invite students to come back and take refresher classes. We give them half price slots. I learned that from Asad Ayub, actually, half price slots for refresher students. And that encourages people to come back, and you can fill empty slots in what would be a small class with people coming back for half price to run the drills again, just because it was fun and they can't practice those drills anywhere else. So, we tried to, the fun aspect of it and the social aspect of it is a thing. And we try to promote that and encourage that. And I think it works. Like I said, I've got quite a few students that take multiple classes a year. They've already got their challenge coin, and they're just like, well, I like that class, I'll go take that again. Or, hey, I got a new gun, I'm going to come take this class with my new gun to see if I can do better on the test in the class with that gun than I did last time.
Yeah, I saw a huge growth in my business when a group of doctors and lawyers discovered my classes. And it became, instead of doing a weekend of golf, became a weekend of shooting,
Yeah.
and they came to a number of classes repeatedly.
Yeah.
And you see the same people showing up no matter which instructor, travel instructors coming through town. I can count on, I'm going to know probably half to three quarters of the students
Right.
from previous classes.
Right.
I took my first open enrollment class in April of 2014, which was Tom Given's combative pistol.
Yeah.
In 2016, I saw a picture from an event in Ohio. Now, folks, I live in Georgia. I
Hmm.
saw a picture of an event in Ohio, and I knew or knew of over half of the people in the picture.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, Tom's theory is there's about 10,000 people
Hmm.
that support the national private sector firearms training industry at the core of it, particularly the expensive 2 and 3 day weekend high round count classes. Those are the serious ones, those people that are
Right.
really into it. They enjoy the aspect of the group classes. There's a certain kind of person that wants to be they want to go shoot matches, and they're going to practice on their own, and they're self-motivated to learn and improve, and they like going to big matches. There's other people that like to go to group classes to learn new drills and new things, and also for the social aspect of the classes. And so, different subcultures within the
Hmm.
firearms training community, but for sure, there's a lot of familiar faces. And honestly, for people that are coming up, to be instructors, often that's how you make the connections between, who's gonna host you and who's gonna be hosted, and all that sort of thing. So there's all that networking that occurs in there as well.
Yeah, it's no different than I've already mentioned golf, but a bowling league or people that get together and do fishing tournaments on the weekends.
Oh yeah,
There's really no difference, and that's that same need of you want to associate with people that have the same interests that you do.
yeah, oh yeah.
And that's not to say that we're all in lockstep and all agree with each other on everything all the time, because that
It'd
is
be it'd be
absolutely not
it
the
would be
case.
boring if we did.
That's right. Um, and so then that next level, you start to look into the self-esteem needs, and finishing that 40-hour class that you started with KR training and getting that coin, or I can earn one of Handgun Combative's belt buckles if I win this drill, or I can
Oh
get
yeah,
this patch for, you know, I set the record on this drill or that drill.
oh
That's the
yeah.
kind of thing that taps into the self-esteem needs, correct?
Absolutely. Well, and it was in I was on a one closed Facebook instructor group, and someone was like, "Well, you've got this reputation that every time you go to a class, you try to be the top shooter in the class." I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, I do." And I practice before I go to class, because I want to be motivated to do well, right? I want to get everything I can out of the class. And why don't I fix all the mistakes I already know I can make and try to get as tuned up as I can be? And then I get more out of the instructor. If I'm going to train with a world champion shooter, then I shouldn't take a month off and be off my game. I
Right.
made that mistake once. I went to the Rogers School, and instead of practicing for it and preparing for it properly, I just went cold, and that was not a good plan. I missed my advanced rating by 2 plates. If I had done a little homework, I would have not had a problem making it. I know one guy that's gone out there multiple times chasing the perfect score, and after I think 4 trips out there, he finally managed to make that perfect score and join a very elite list of people. I think 6 now in history
Yes.
that have ever shot a perfect score out there, and that's a perfect example of being at the top of that pyramid and being very focused and working toward it. I just got Ben Steger's new book on shooting training, and he breaks it down into four levels of motivation. And the level 3 motivation is where most of the training regulars come out, right? They want to get to master level in terms of their skill, and they're going to shoot maybe 5 to 20,000 rounds a year, and they stay at that level, but they have a life outside of shooting. And then Ben describes the level 4 as basically, if you're trying to win the nationals or go to that level, you give up everything else. You shoot 50,000 rounds a year, and that's all you have going on in your life, because that's what it takes. It's Olympian level motivation. And some people dabble at that level for a while and decide that the juice isn't worth the squeeze, that the sacrifices and the other stuff that falls off, the satisfaction from pursuing that it takes a special person to be that level of motivated, to put that level of work in to get all the way up the top of the pyramid. And it's a great accomplishment, but it's not for everybody. And that's, understanding that from a marketing perspective as a trainer, I think is important too.
Right. And, you mentioned Rogers Shooting School and the different ratings there. That taps into the esteem needs and the self-actualization needs as well. Uh,
Yeah, like I said, there's people that like certificates and ratings and achievements and all the gold stars and pins, and I'm definitely one of those people. And as I explained to the people on the instructor forum, I said, I need a shooting goal, right? Otherwise, I'm have no motivation to go train. It's right now, I'm getting ready to go shoot. It's the Area 4 Steel Challenge, and it's a regional steel challenge competition. I got asked to give a clinic. I'm like, well, if I'm going to go give a clinic, I probably need to shoot pretty good at the match. So, after a year of not shooting very much, I gritted my teeth and, invested in some ammo, and I'm shooting, 500 to 800 rounds a week, which is not a ton, but it's, what I can afford, and with money and time and everything. But I mean, I'm probably going to shoot 5,000 rounds getting ready for this match, just for this one regional match. But it gave me a structure and a reason to go to the range, and specific drills to practice and specific goals to achieve. And, as Ben Steger once said, it's one reason he got as good as he got is he really enjoys practicing. You really have to enjoy going to the range and practicing to go out and do it. And that's I'm kind of in that mode. I am enjoying the process of going out to the range, and you write down scores and having a plan and running the timer, and okay, how can I do this better? How can I do this better? And at the end of this training for this match, regardless of how I come out in the match, I will have gotten better, or at least gotten back to a good level of skill, because I had a reason to do it. Once the match is over with, I don't have much of a shooting goal happening until the Gabe White class this fall. And so I'm probably going to not shoot much in August. And then I'll start working on trying to get my skills up to win my turbo pin again, motivated by the little animal pin that he gives out. Why? Because it's there, why
right.
not?
Well, part of that goes back to the esteem needs and the actualization ones. You want this sense of accomplishment, but then, this is a community, and everybody in the community kind of knows who has what
Yeah.
and what people's scores were in events. Rogers has been in existence for over 30 years. Only
Yeah.
six people in 30 years have managed to shoot a perfect score on that test. One of them is Rob Latham, who's probably the greatest pistol shooter to ever live.
Oh yeah.
The second one is Bill Rogers, who owns the school and probably
Yep.
gets more chances to shoot it than anybody else.
Oh, I
Then you,
bet not. If his life is
yeah,
like mine.
right. Well,
Once you
over
own the
30
range,
years,
that's shooting is the
yeah.
last thing you get to do.
Well, over 30 years, and he demonstrates the
He
test at every
does.
course and
He
everything.
does.
So every school that runs through, you figure he gets at least one run on the test.
Yep.
All right. Well,
Yep.
then you have Gabe White, who also has a class that has a graduated level of awards based on how well you do on numerous performance tests. Then you had Manny Bragg, who was USPSA Grandmaster. And trivia, Gabe and Manny did it on the same day in the same class.
Oh
Gabe
wow.
was Gabe was the first person to have done it from concealment, and I just happened to be able to stand there and watch both of them do it, and that was kind of a fun
That's
treat.
fun.
Number five, it was one of the instructors here at the Georgia Public Safety Training Center named Dave Knight, and then Kirk. I won't say Kirk's last name because I know he has to, for his professional reasons, has to have some level of anonymity. But that's six people in 30 years that they have that self-actualization and that esteem of having done that. The
Oh
crazy
yeah.
thing about how small this community is that Rob Latham's the only one that I've not met.
Well, you got to fix that.
Right. And three of them, I have their numbers in my phone and can get them on the phone right now if I need to. So, it's just like, wow, that's a real small community. Well, you look at
Yep.
Gabe White, he awards that turbo pin. It's dark, light, and turbo in
That's right.
order of succession. I think only 24 people have earned turbo pins,
Yeah. Yeah.
something to that effect.
It's all hard. And Jedi Scott Jedlinski's black belt.
Mhm.
He's only got a handful of people that have earned that.
Right,
And I know Brian Hill has some kind of standard.
right,
I have sort of avoided setting that kind of standard in my program, only because of my marketing approach and the customer base I'm trying to reach.
right.
Uh, I'm trying to get to a different layer of students,
Mhm.
which doesn't lead to the sort of following perhaps that other people have,
Right.
that if you're only working at the top level. But from a local perspective, I think there's a lot of people between that 1% and the 25% or whatever, the people that are marginally motivated. They need attainable goals too, because those people, more of those people we can make better, the better prepared they're going to be to defend themselves. They're not ever going to
Right.
be training junkies. They're not going to take the level of training, but they need structure as well. And I think often
Right.
the guys that only are chasing the top tier and the ultra motivated, it's good for their repeat business. It's from a fiscal standpoint. As traveling trainers, I see the appeal. As a local guy, I've sort of taken a different
Right.
approach.
I've made the personal decision that I'm no longer going to attend classes that the standards are based on split times,
Hmm.
because I have just decided I'm not going to participate in anything where every shot's not an individual decision.
Yep.
And really and truly, you can't do that shooting at faster than 0.35 splits. And you're not going to get a turbo pin shooting at 0.35 splits.
No.
Now, I've got 3 light pins and I can shoot a light pin on demand, and I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Um, but say like Jedlinski's black belt standards, that's just something that I'm not interested in achieving, but I'm not trying to see how fast I can shoot. I developed a test specifically based around small carry guns, called the no loader test, because it's a revolver test that doesn't have speed loaders in it. And using a target that I designed, there's 2 levels. There's pass and there's pass with distinction. And I've already had several big name instructors that have like sent me emails. It's like, man, I'm trying to be able to do this to that pass to distinction level.
Yeah.
And it's just something as simple as that, as a pure 100% accountability test
Yeah.
versus a
Oh yeah.
speed test.
Yep. Well, it's
Um,
interesting. Like I said, I just got through reading Ben's latest book, and he has a long discussion in there about the difference between predictive and reactive shooting. And it's basically a discussion of, when do you go ahead and fire 2 shots based on one sight picture, or is there conscious thought occurring between shot number 1 and shot number 2? And it
right.
definitely has a relation to split times.
Yeah.
That he admits, purely from a competitive perspective, that at certain targets, at certain distances, you really are aiming once and shooting twice, and using basically your grip strength and your recoil control and your understanding of the timing of how the gun cycles, to not necessarily say shoot on rhythm, but you're just not seeing very much for the second shot, versus shots of greater difficulty that require additional time to see the sights in between. So even the competition guys understand there's a difference in terms of decision making, and do I pull the trigger again, even if it's simply confirming the sights before you make that next shot.
Right. And that comes down to a technical skills versus application of skill from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah.
And there is a difference. Now, you need to have great technical skills, but there's a certain point where chasing, you know, 0.25 splits just doesn't become very practical
Yeah.
from a application standpoint.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree. Absolutely. That's
And so,
why, like in our shoot house, we don't run a timer in the shoot house. It's, were your hits acceptable, and was the outcome acceptable, and not how long did it take you, because we're not interested in the timing of that sort of thing, because it's not a pre-programmed stage where where
right,
everything is. It's did you execute the process correctly? Did you use cover correctly? Did you shoot as soon as you had a shot? That sort of thing. So it's a different set of training programs than pure, running drills and running through mazes and running exercises.
and that's one of the great things I think about the training classes, that you can kind of look at what your end goals are, and you can look at training programs and different instructors and choose your classes based on where you want to be. If your goal is to be a master or grandmaster in USPSA, well, then you pick an instructor that will teach you to go more along those paths. If you're interested more in, I'm wanting to be in a competitive environment, but I also want to, my skills are more important for self-protection, well, then you can look at classes that are rigged around, geared towards more of that mindset.
Right. Well, and that's something I'm going to plug my book right now. Just I'm
Absolutely.
warning you right there. Right.
Hmm.
This is the book that we wrote. John Dobb and I put this together, and it's strategies and standards for defensive handgun training. One of the sections of the book, and that beyond the 1%, goes back to the training that people want versus the training that people need. And we reference, Claude Werner, his great book, The Mistakes, Serious Mistakes Gun Owners Make. And the point I make to students, and the reason our coin program is set up the way it is, unlike the majority of all these standards-based turbo pin, Rogers School, all those are pure technical skills. Our 40-hour program includes tactics courses, low light shooting, force on force scenarios, where it's more than simply, can you run the gun? It's easy to
Right.
go down the rabbit hole of, I'm just going to get better and better and better at shooting. But if you look at Claude's work and the mistakes that gun owners make, rarely is it gun handling or shooting skill that's the problem. It's
Right.
all communication and decision making and all the tactics stuff. And a lot of gun owners, particularly those that are new into training, their first instinct is, I just want the gun classes, right? I get people that I want to take defensive pistol 1, 2, and 3, and I
Hmm.
want to meet your shooting standards for defensive 3. And I have to explain to them, yeah, that's great. You're not going to get your challenge coin just for the live fire stuff.
Right.
If you don't come for the tactics courses, if you don't learn how to use those skills, if you don't master the communication piece, if you don't master the paying attention to other people and the pre-fight indicator piece, then you don't get the challenge coin, because it's all part of the whole package. It's not just a shooting skills program. And so that's even, most of the programs that people have, except for like Gunsight does some force on force and shoot house work. But a lot of the other programs that have, particularly all the weekend traveling trainer type people, it's all pure live fire. It's all pure shooting skills. As you know, I'm one of the few guys that has a traveling force on force road show. And I go around the country and we run force on force scenarios. I've got another one of those scheduled for Virginia in September. And it's a different set of problems. There's no pin to earn, right?
Right.
It's experiential learning, as Craig Douglas calls it, right? We're going to run you through a whole bunch of scenarios so that you can learn from them and get practice with all of the aspects of the problem, not just drawing your gun and shooting it. And to me, that's the other thing that often gets neglected in this. I'm chasing pins and medals. That you can be a grandmaster level shooter and be terrible in force on force scenarios because you don't know how to get out of a problem. You don't know when to walk out of the 7-Eleven because you're too eager to, well, I want to get to the part where I get to shoot somebody with my simunition gun. Well, maybe the scenario that wasn't the right solution, but here you are at the end of it. And now, fake Officer Jones is coming to arrest you because you did something you probably shouldn't have.
I will take a minute here and plug Carl's force on force class. Uh, I got to say, the best in the private sector that I have seen.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely,
You're very
without a
kind.
doubt, the best in the private sector. I, wholeheartedly recommend and suggest it. It is. I would send my family to it, and I can't say any other higher endorsement to that. And the reason that I contacted you and brought you in and hosted you to the time that I did was that John Hearn told me he would send his family to it, without any reservation.
Well, I'm
And
glad I gave
John's,
him that $100 to say that.
and John's opinion is someone that I trust. And so I was like, I know Carl, and Carl does good stuff. And I was not, I knew it was going to be good. I was blown away with how good it was done. And it's like, I'm not even going to try to do it. I'm just going to refer people to you. And, and hopefully we can get you back here now that the plague is somewhat subsiding.
Yeah. Well, now you have all the props and everything, so we don't have to build new props for next time.
Right.
That's always the challenge we'll get into in the next episode here about hosting and traveling. But one reason why fewer people do force on force traveling is the amount of equipment that it takes and the amount of logistics that it takes compared to, hey, I got an open field and we got 5 target stands. We can run a
Right.
high intensity round count shooting class.
All right. In regards to beyond the 1%, is there anything that I didn't ask you about that I should have?
No, I mean, if people are interested, please buy the book. If you go to krtraining.com, you can get a print copy signed by both authors. If you want a digital copy, go to Amazon And if you want a large print copy, go to Amazon, and we now have a large print version that's easier to read with the graphics are bigger. It's a larger format book. So we've been honored that the demand for the book has been high enough to justify, coming around again on the reprints and everything. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. If you're a micro analyzer of shooting technique, the last third of the book is all about how to take any drill and deconstruct it to figure out how difficult it is and find out what standards are, grandmaster standards and which things are IDPA expert standards and all of that. So, I mean, we've got a lot of that kind of cookbook stuff. That the first part of the book, I think, is the most interesting, which is trying to understand what training do you need and why do you need it, and really identifying what's a realistic minimum level to train to, which of course we think our answer is the right answer. But, we explain why our answer is what it is, and you can use our thinking to analyze for yourself what your training needs to be. But yeah, if you're one of those people that only takes live fire classes and your only interest is in, I got to get to that sub 1 second draw from concealment, and I got to got to shoot a 5 second fast drill or whatever, that's all good. But if you carry and you're not doing the legal stuff and the medical stuff and the tactic stuff, you may need to, start expanding out your repertoire. If you haven't done an ECQC course or something like that, you want to make sure you keep your training broad spectrum, and don't just be a high speed pistol shooter, because you may find out that's not all the skills that you need.
Right. And in his book, he has a course of 3 seconds or less standards. And that's not something that's like super grandmastery, level of technical skill. That's a good baseline of, if I can accomplish these things, I'm probably fairly competent with a pistol.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to test yourself.
And if you want to make it harder, well, change it to 2.5 seconds or less, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can change it to 2.2 seconds or less. I had Kirk, one of the Rogers perfect score guys, shoot it. And, for him, 2 seconds par for every string was challenging. So,
Right.
If you look at it and you go, well, that's all super easy and I can do that in 3 seconds. Well, crank the par time down, try it again.
Right. Or shoot it 100% clean.
Yeah.
Hold yourself, up the standard there.
Cold.
Yeah. And I've shot it. I shot it in a class with you and everything, and I didn't shoot it clean. I passed it, but I didn't shoot it at 100%. And, those are all challenges that you can do that don't necessarily involve, I've got to be a grandmaster level shooter.
Yeah. Yeah. The right way to do that test, once you pass it once, is shoot it clean at the start of your practice. And that's really an assessment of what can I do? What do I have?
Well, there you go. All right. We will end episode 1 here, and we will be back in a few minutes to record episode 2 that will air some point in time after episode 1. So, or it'll be on YouTube. So it'll be whichever order you choose to watch them. I'm that Weems guy. This is First Person Safety.